I'm pretty sure it was just a coincidence. A few months ago in Irvine, California, Christopher Q took it upon himself to attack a black child at a high school with a metal pipe. Now, Q, it should be known, is 24 years old. Not a high school student, obviously not a parent. He doesn't even have any known relatives at the school. He just waited until he saw a black child by himself and attacked that kid with a metal pipe. When the teenager's brother came to his aid, Q, like the animal he is, attacked him as well, leaving both of these black citizens with serious injuries. The race terrorist then fled on foot. Police found the bloody weapon near the scene, and he was soon caught and jailed on charges of felony assault, assault with a deadly weapon, and suspicion of committing a hate crime. Suspicion. Because apparently attacking a child of another race with a deadly weapon while screaming racist vitriol isn't clear enough for the Irvine police. And this is not the first time that this Q character's been arrested for assault with a deadly weapon either. We'll get to that in a minute. What I think bears emphasis is that all this happened shortly after the Asians were indulging in phony outrage over a racist murderer who was convicted for his crime. In Irvine, Asians were busy annoying the locals with pitiful demonstrations at Irvine City Hall and the Irvine Civic Center. The same Asians who have never protested locally, much less nationally, when Asians were killed by white cops. Lets you know that life means less to them than the socio-economic privileges they've gotten from the dominant society, doesn't it? They know that to maintain the place white supremacy has granted to them, that they must curry favor with the white powers that be every day, and that means you must prove that you know the pecking order and will support it. And the only way to prove that is by attacking black people. That is the price of admission for non-whites who want to be honorary white supremacists. The reason that the Asians have not and are not about to stage any protests against the white authorities who kill Asians is that the Asians are painfully aware that the cost of their societal privileges, their honorary white status, is to accept that every once in a while they'll have to let whites kill a few of them with impunity. You must offer the monster a few of your own to appease him, and prove that his favor means more to you than your own lives. It's the cost of doing business with the devil, and they're willing to pay it. And like the Irish, Italians, Greeks, and Hispanics before them, the Asians are proving their fidelity to the white world order by showing they'll attack black people ruthlessly. But I'm sure that this incident had nothing to do with the Asians' protest for Peter Liang. Because as the Asians never get tired of telling us, old Liang was Asian. And as we all know, no Asian person would ever just attack a black person out of the blue without cause, right? The white guy's favorite meme is that if blacks keep crying racism, it will lose its meaning. Besides, you can't really call it racial unless the guy who attacks you is screaming racist slurs while he does it. Oh, wait. Before I go any further, I want to point out the ridiculousness of the Irvine police spokeswoman's statement. She said the two victims are really nice, good people. They didn't provoke the suspect. Then this brainless broad goes on to add, they didn't do anything wrong. We also need to note that the Irvine police did not give the media Q's rap sheet. No mention of his prior arrest for exactly this same type of crime. We're getting to that part, but let me address this heifer's statement. First, have you ever seen the police sit there and all but plead to the media that the victims of a crime did not deserve to be victimized? Have you ever seen the police sit there and think it necessary to say that the white victims of a crime are good people? When the victims are white, these things are a given, but it does go to show that the police clearly recognize that they've spent so much time falsely slandering and deliberately libeling black victims of crime that even the police feel it awkward to talk about black victims without throwing all these disclaimers on top of it. After decades of telling the public that black victims of crime somehow provoked it or deserved it or in some inexplicable way brought it on themselves, the police simply don't know what to say when they actually have to charge someone for attacking a black person. Secondly, these disclaimers mean nothing because they will have no bearing at all on what happens next. The same system of white supremacy that mobilized itself to allow a race terrorist to go free is the same system that let George Zimmerman go as well. It's not about whether black people did anything to provoke anyone. Walter Scott didn't provoke anyone, Eric Garner didn't provoke anyone, Amadou Diallo didn't provoke anyone, and Akai Gurley didn't provoke anyone either. This crime, as with all the others, won't be adjudicated based on whether you can prove the black person did anything to deserve it. Peter Liang should have proven to you that even when everyone agrees that the victim did nothing wrong, that still doesn't prevent the injustice system from letting the murderers of black people go. I foresee another slap on the wrist for Q in the not-too-distant future, because you won't be surprised to know that this wasn't his first brush with the law, because he had been released from jail only a few days before he attacked. And in 2013, he had been charged with felony assault with a deadly weapon and a misdemeanor count of making criminal threats. Q was sentenced to 84 days in jail for that one and 3 years probation. Naturally, the felony charges were thrown out. Reports don't say if he served even 1 day of that sentence, but it is mentioned that he violated his parole in February and got an additional 60 days in stir. But that didn't last too long because he was released again on March 22nd and a few days later carried out his race terrorist attack. Multiple offenses, all sorts of charges, but this man is not held to account. I suppose this is what's meant by model minority. This guy's story kind of reminds you of Dylan Roof, doesn't it? Because Dylan Roof had been arrested too for creeping out mall employees and drug possession. But instead of going to jail, as happens to black people, the cops just let him go. And he immediately carried out a horrendous hate crime in the aftermath, didn't he? As did George Zimmerman, who attacked a cop in 2005, and then later the same year attacked his then fiancée. And both times he was given a slap on the wrist. Had they been black, both these bastards would have long since been serving heavy prison sentences under 3 strikes. But when the person accused of a crime is not black, the charges are always downgraded to misdemeanors, no matter what the crime is. After that, since it's only misdemeanor assault or misdemeanor whatever, it's now considered a minor offense, and the case is pleaded out or thrown out altogether. On the other hand, when the person charged is black, doesn't matter if it's jaywalking, the offense is always upgraded to some sort of hard felony. But I'm sure that's just another coincidence too, isn't it? Say, how many coincidences does it take before it's okay to say that there's a pattern at work here? Keep these 2 cases in mind when the white supremacists try to claim that black people commit all the crimes. Whites and Asians commit more crimes, but are almost never charged, or get charged with misdemeanors instead of the felonies they deserve. And even when sentenced, they're allowed to waltz out of the jail, violate parole, and then stroll back out as if nothing had happened. Also, keep these cases in mind when scum like Jess Hong and her racist ilk try to tell you Asians are only concerned with justice. If they really wanted to protest a criminal justice system that persecutes people based on race, then all they have to do is support the black community. But when you're campaigning for honorary white status, that simply isn't part of your agenda. Come to think of it, since the Asians have nothing to say about black people being oppressed by the injustice system, perhaps we'll see the Asians in Irvine protesting the way that this Q guy was treated by the criminal justice system. And why not? After all, the system treats Asians differently, right? The police are claiming that they can't figure out any real motive for the crime, but we all know what it is, don't we? Not surprisingly, the white media didn't see fit to cover this story at all. Guess when you're trying to manufacture a feeble narrative, it doesn't help to report all the facts, does it? These guys are targeting black children now. They are targeting black children and have for decades. Black people had better start getting this through their heads. They are doing what they've historically always done in the face of white power. Collaborate with it. And I know I'll get the one or two Asians who'll come on this channel and try the same old speech, talking out of both sides of their mouths, denying that Asians have immunity from law even while you give them example after example. Asians don't behave better than anyone else. Far from it. It's that they're given a pass by the white majority, and because so many white males who run media are married to Asian women or desperately wish they were, the crimes are overlooked. And when you consider that places like California have a glut of Asians in the judiciary, the chances are excellent that any Asian offender will be in front of an Asian judge who will give them a wink and a nod and dismiss any case brought against them. The same way that an Asian judge let Peter Liang off the hook. You know damned well if this bastard had been tried for the felonies that he committed 3 years ago, that this crime probably wouldn't have happened. If the judge had significantly hardened his sentence after he broke parole, this probably wouldn't have happened. In other words, if Asians and whites were treated by the system the same way black people are always treated, you wouldn't hear many Asians and wouldn't hear any whites talking greasy about black people and crime statistics. Stalin once said that in elections, it's not who votes that counts. It's who counts the votes. Well, in the criminal justice system, it's not who commits the crimes that counts. It's who counts the crimes. And in this country, under white supremacy, it's whites who comprise the overwhelming majority of police and judges and prison officials. And in California, it's both whites and Asians. Now it becomes more clear why we see certain people getting charged for non-existent crimes and others who never get charged no matter how many offenses they commit. But then again, for whites and Asians, this is no surprise at all. They've always known this. They like things exactly the way they are and are fighting a war to keep it this way. You've been told.